each different bubble of reality is true.
A galactic historian is a person that looks at all the lines of dramatic karma.
Nudge, nudge, it's the Holy Grail.
Improvise. Mysterious.
It's counter psychic intelligence.
Why is DNA farming of this star cluster so important?
Because we do manifest our reality. We do create our reality.
Now, we've talked before privately about architecture programming.
Yes.
And architecture programming is one of those things that the system of domination and control can instill software into your liver or into your lungs or into your tailbone, and you would never know it no matter how strong of an I am presence you are who would daily clean your field. These things are designed to be very shadowy, to be camouflaged, until one day when you're at a stoplight and somebody cuts you off, or you're just at a point where you're drained and your physical I am presence is not as much there, these things trigger and become active and are part of your system and stay dormant until the next opportunity of anger or an expression of frustration. And then they trigger your adrenal glands to become overactive. And then you're caught in a cycle, repetitive cycle. That's the fundamentals of a lot of this programming. And when human beings begin to understand etheric broadcasting is the transmitters for this, our awakening process will be much, much simpler. 80% of the unclean and unclear thoughts that are being put forward through the etheric broadcasting are designed to make you attract etheric parasites. So you're out at full energy during a time of an awakening where you should be pulling energy in from the earth around you. And earth will be recycling its infinite dream source, feeding all the plants and the animals, or the environment itself that's feeding our earth change, because we are in the birth moment. We're at the time the menstrual cycle is over, the pregnancy is done, and we are the first consciousness birth species coming back into unity consciousness since Earth's great series of menstrual mistakes.
And so the creative process
Regenerates you.
It does. It definitely does. But then and corresponding, or this goes wrong for a lot of the frustration and a lot of the work for me. Or do I just let it all go to move on to the next? What is next? And
what's making you happy right now?
That's a tough question for me to answer.
And that's the soul searching that we all have to do of what makes us happy. Doing galactic history makes me happy. Doing readings for people makes me happy. Doing healings for people makes me happy. Being me makes me happy. Having to have conversations like this with normal people that are advanced enough to begin to comprehend some of the information I bring out. Like, Chris never had a clue who I was until 10 minutes before a show I did with him. And the first 20 minutes was wow, 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 what? Wow, 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 what? Followed up by, okay, this guy's not bullshitting. He's got something to dig into. And then he just dug in and dug in and dug in and didn't back down. Okay, for you, you're in a situation that your life path, what really gives you happiness is interaction with people that are creative. Okay? Your education is how you interact with them on a business level, but on a personal level, you can be hyperly creative with people and have no business relation. Building a house, whatever, putting pavers down, you can still do that. For you individually, at this moment, the heart space that you're holding for your business and the heart space that you're holding for your spiritual development, just off from center a little bit. Not a lot. One's going in this way, one's going this way. And they both make you happy, but the heart's still in the center that has to go like this between the two. It's where we choose to open up our crown chakra to the fullest extent of our highest being and allow that creational process and co-creational process with our high vibration being and our egos and everything in between to be fully present about what's making you happy. So when you fall back into the programs that we run in the morning while I am presence is away doing something else, that is in the foundations of the program. And that the different parts of the physical body, the energy body, the sexual body, the sensual body, all those different bodies that we have can act at the same definitions. Because there are times that the different bodies, and then you have other people who are complete introverts until you put them in a situation where they talk about something they love, and all of a sudden they just talk nonstop.
Right, right.
Okay? I call it adjusting the rudder of the boat of your direction. Okay, you're on a big ocean of awareness. If you're going towards some type of awareness, you have to be aware of what that awareness is. Let's say, Hope's in there getting the stuff ready and unpacking over there. We don't need to be aware of that. There's people over there, there's people over there. For us, this little reality bubble is what exists here, unless you allow your awareness beyond it. Ceremonial life means you're taking your awareness away from everything, including the work, what makes you happy, all of that, and being in that moment to determine happiness as well as charting your future course through happiness. And then honoring that with some type of ritual, burning of sage, offering of something to the land, so you remember that these trees, this bamboo, is all a part of us too. These shells that we sit on, everything, the air, the earth, and giving that the same awareness, honoring it for its sharing of experience in this reality. That's what ceremony and ritual life is. So finding a hobby that's separate of your work that also brings happiness, I recommend that to everyone.
Yeah, I used to have that nice, gardening was it for me.
RC planes, something else. I mean, something where you just go out and be a kid again, honestly.
Yeah.
You can just...
Yeah, it's a playful thing as well.
Yeah.
You
got to have that in your life.
Yeah.
That's why it's one of the things I like about the Kung Fu, because it's so physical.
Yep.
It's fun. I go bike riding.
Not only is it fun and physical, you're really learning something about your body.
Oh, God, yes.
Yeah.
The next piece I want to play for you was a discussion that relates directly to the presentation given by Lisa Renee, where she was talking a lot about system architecture and how it works and how it was inserted and what you can do to actually free yourself of system architecture to a degree. Well, this is some of Andrew's take on system architecture. So this is a piece. It runs for about 30 minutes, and it's sort of part one of system architecture. So I'll put that on now and see you on the other side. Just want to preface this. There's a number of conversations we had that Andrew began by saying, "Chris, I think you better get the recorder." This was one of them. And it's become so interesting we've decided to record it.
Correct.
And the question I asked, we're having a discussion about the control mechanism and some of the physics as to how it actually works. And Andrew started to go to a very interesting line of information as the answer. So we decided to record it.
That's right.
So we were talking about how the implants that the system uses are actually controlled.
Correct. It starts with the architecture of the implants. It started with Project Talent in the 1940s and 50s, which is an amalgamation of all the rape, torture, physical abuse, mental abuse programs that were done in the Knights, the eras of the Knights. Sexual abuse has been in our society for a long time. It's part of the program architectures. When they needed to upgrade the system so it could affect people on a much heavier scale, they needed to create a system that was an omnidirectional field that could affect everyone. So they created the initial architecture programming field, which is based off of the crystalline mountains from Pine Gap to wherever there's a crystal chunk in a mountain, it's a resonator to create this field. Our world is made of energy, and in between atoms there's an infinite amount of space. And in that infinite amount of space you can have things that phase in and out of a reality that we believe in. This believed reality has a measurable sentience vibration to it, and an implant can be put into you and you'd never know it because it phases out from one reality into this physical reality. Like this table that I'm touching is physical, but it's still energy. We just don't perceive it as its energy. So if an implant were to come back into your medulla or into your cerebrum or into your tailbone, it would be able to institute programs on an architecture layer as the fundamental blueprints of who you are. They can remap your genetic sequence. They can change your ancestralship so that you have a different soul relations, and you'd never really realize that they could change that much. And as they begin to work on those very fundamental and subtle layers that we're unaware of because we have amnesia as a species, and when we come through the birth canal, we're unaware of truly who we are. And this technology is fully aware of who we are, and what we can do. And it is being used as a dog collar in some scenarios, and shock collar as another scenario, or a complete and total programming mechanism from you from the top down, bottom up, from the point that you're born. And the architecture is an omnidirectional field that phases in and out of reality, and you could have an implant in you at one moment and the next moment it's gone, but the program's inside you. And that's what the founding of Project Talent was to mass insert the very founding Orion and Syrian Grey hybrid dark technologies, which were meant to be domination and control chipping technology.
That was Project Talent, was prior to MK Ultra.
Project Talent's been around since the World War I.
Yes. And
it came out of Project Southern Cross, which was Nikola Tesla overview of the Tesla death ray weapons and looking at Archimedes weapons and a number of other stuff. But they discovered with Tesla's experiments that energy is free and they can do it anywhere. They also figured out how to make crystalline implants that had no moving parts inside them. They just literally had a single program, and that program was to be warrior, to be healer, to be scientist, to be this. And they could look and scan the whole world of all the beings living on it and find the genetic sequence in an individual line that said that somebody's going to come into this lineage and it's going to be a powerful soul. And they began what's called predictive modeling. And Project Talent was to put the predictive modeling inside everyone that they could that was in any place that had power, like Mount Shasta, Mount Fuji, the Bermuda Triangle. They wanted to see how souls would come in and begin predictive modeling, because it was all about what was going to happen between 2011 and 2014. So they needed to build these predictive models by inserting this technology and begin the process of domination and control so they could fine-tune their propaganda and then fine-tune their timeline viewing to look for specific lineages that they had already targeted in the 1900s. From 1900 to 1917, the Spanish influenza was actually released to actually kill a specific portion of people that had a genetic sequence in them that they couldn't
control.
The implants wouldn't stay embedded in them, and the programs wouldn't stay embedded in them.
How successful were the implants? Would they always work?
Torturously successful.
Were they?
Yeah.
So would they give more or less complete control of the individual, or just control of that aspect of the individual that they wanted?
The individual gave them control. That's what it was. It's the torture and abuse until you break a person into 3 or 4 or 5 personalities. Dave Corso is a survivor.
So would they do that and implant them?
Yes. Yep. That Project Talent was to do that. You were tortured and abused, and then they'd stick implants in you.
If they just implant you, that's not enough? They've got to break you?
In the Project Talent, it wasn't enough. The technology wasn't refined enough, and the predictive modelings weren't strong enough. Dave Corso, he's a survivor of Project Talent, and I've worked with him many, many times. And the types of technology that he has in him is even more advanced than what they have today, but it was too much, and they broke him into like 700 different personalities, and then split his body into a few thousand different clones, and then timeline traveled him around all over, and then put him in different dimensions and different universes. And they needed to see and predictive model what their control systems would do if they made him a sleeper agent on another world.
I mean, that's the plot of a whole series of movies. Right there in that paragraph.
The whole thing is, remember, Earth is connected to the dreaming minds of millions and millions of other planets. So if you give a person a belief structure that they go in, just like the Mars program is, if you give people a metal box with alien writing and say it's a jump room, they'll believe it and make it work.
Yeah.
It's the same thing with implants. They're trying to get us to make a belief system so that they use the conduits of Earth, which is the dreaming mind of Earth, which means you can mentally teleport yourself to the dreaming mind of another world and then solidify yourself there in a skin suit that's the same as another world. So you can create massive amounts of sleeper agents on other worlds. And that's why this world is in quarantine, because they know that it'll spread viral.
So it's all about belief in the end. Now,
we about actually belief and sentience. And then there was the discovery of technology that, how do I put this, allowed you to bilocate and remote experience, which made belief systems even more potent.
Yeah. So it would expand what you believed was possible.
Correct.
And that's all that's required. See, we're actually imprisoned by limited belief for the most part in this aspect of the system, but in the functionaries of the control system, they're actual operatives, the MK Ultra dudes. They empower them with a wider range of specific beliefs that still serve the system, but are way beyond what the population believes is possible.
Correct. Something else, when it comes to the Mars and the jump room programs, in our history, there was technology that did it. And that's the power of myth that's being used to create belief systems now. And that's what's attempting to be done now between 2011 and 2014, is to use the power of myth from the ancient times so that when people go to create beyond now, they use those myths as the foundational creation, when in fact they're lies. And some were literally created to just be propaganda.
Well, propaganda is a matter of establishing belief sets.
Correct.
That's all it's for.
Correct. And on top of that, when you look at the Mars jump room, their purpose was to create a group of people that could use belief system to go invade another world and create a belief system within that world so that they could hijack that reality, like their reality was hijacked.
And that's the terms that they think in when they're planning what they want to do next.
They were in the belief they were going there to research Mars.
Real. They had a real experience to them.
They were there
physical experience
as members of the military and scientists and explorers to go look at Mars. They weren't there for nefarious purpose. The people that were creating the experiment did that.
They both appeared to have. They all appeared to have handlers, people with them who were from higher up in the system, if you like.
Time travelers.
Well, so they knew what was going on. They were just walking these people through a new set of beliefs.
And they were time travelers. So you have to put that in there. When you expose children to timeline travel and to timeline technology, you alter their belief system on such a grand scale. They can do things that the controllers never expected, because they did things in the time stream that made it very difficult for them to be eliminated, because so much of what they did was the foundation for timeline sight and selection of all the presidents since that.
Yeah, well,
going back to the MK Ultra and some of the other earlier projects, were these individuals that went through that, were they targeted based on their DNA, their
and soul, and soul lineage, where they'd been, what dimensions they've lived in?
So did they have hardware that was necessary, at least initially, until the advancement of this technology?
There was hardware inserted brain technology as far back as you can remember. The Atlantean Lemurians had crystalline implant technology, which was captured, and then it took a very long time for them to reverse engineer it, because the technology that we had in our bodies at that time was to make us even more in tune with Earth, the trees, the air, the gravel, the animals. That was its purpose, is the program architecture of the world interfunctioned with us in a very positive way. And then they figured out how to reverse engineer it into a control and domination system. Again, it comes back to the skin suit technology in your body, that these systems can be put in there because there's architecture framework that says if you put this crystalline implant somewhere around the pineal gland, you'll be able to interfunction with your sentience. Well, what our DNA skin suit did was it took that crystal and put it in the third eye and broke it down to its most basic pieces, and then the third eye pineal gland was amplified and created, and that's what phased it out of reality. This new technology, they'll literally stick it into your pineal gland, insert programming, and then phase it back out of reality.
Wow. And how do they stick it in there? What's the technique for putting it in?
There's the complete and total XY axis on our world. That's the 40 control rooms that I've talked about. They're able to pinpoint where absolutely everyone is in the world now, what DNA structure you have, and make a genetic sequence of who you are, what soul families you live. Just like I describe where other peoples have lived, they have a very high accuracy rate of who you are, what soul you've been, where you've been, what experiences you've had.
What role does somatic germline manipulation play or could play in the future, or is that even necessary to get some of these new upgrades or these new technologies?
What do you mean by somatic germline in it? Is it a more
to keep it kind of in reality, the ability to determine what color eyes you're going to have, how tall you're going to get, what is your muscle constitution, and that's kind of what it's been sold to the public as. Well, initially it was to extract disease or take out some of these.
That's the propaganda of what geneticists and genetics are doing, and how they insert it into our television, our movies. And when it comes down to it, you physically can change your DNA at any moment in time.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yes.
Through your belief system, through your connection to the earth, through your connection to the ancestors.
Epigenetics now, right?
Andrew, going back to the subject of implants, what you're indicating is that are they at the stage where they could simultaneously implant everybody on the planet? Could they do that yet? No. And if they did, they'd lose.
And that's why I asked about the germline manipulation, if you will, the ability to get us on board and be okay with going into the doctor and having our DNA
or having a cesarean section instead of a natural birth, or letting your kids have vaccinations, because it's your belief system. They want you to believe and walk into it fully, because if they were to take over everyone, they would lose ultimately, because they don't have our consent to do all that.
Yeah, it's abrogating free will on a huge scale to do that. Yeah, so that would cause a reaction across the universe if they did that, I presume. Or would it?
No, it wouldn't, because the other universe would welcome it, because it would be their greatest mistake. And they know that they can't mass implant everyone. They know that. That's totally counter to their purpose. They want us to do it and to take the karmic hit for doing it out of our free will.
Yeah, okay. They want to trick us into asking for it by the methodology of propagandizing it as a medical benefit, as Shane was just saying. So it's another trick.
It's another trick. There are times where parts of your higher soul will come in and be in a line with your dreaming body as it's coming back into the human frame after an extended situation where you're trying to heal yourself in a regeneration chamber, and then the system's trying to mass dominate you because it's identified you in the future timeline as being somewhat of a threat, or somewhat of something that needs to be watched over, because your potential is changing so rapidly that they'll go and mass invest a large series of implants in your tailbone, the back of your neck, your feet, anywhere in your energy meridian systems, and they'll be dormant until you go through a sexual arousal stage, or a sensual stage, or a high energy stage where you're learning, and then they'll be designed by purpose to put you in depression, regression, or obsession, and then they'll phase out, and then you'll come out of that digression, obsession, and regression, and you'll get happy again and doing what you like, and all of a sudden they'll pop back in, and they'll keep you in that manic depressive state.
I was going to say, manic depression. There it is. You know, we try and treat it with drugs that fluoride-based drugs, and it's just the implants turning on and off.
And what the fluorides do is make it harder for your body to actually dematerialize the program architecture. So there's so much idea about there of what fluoride does. Fluoride is there to aid the transition of implant technology in and out of phased reality.
So it's not for our teeth. I'm shocked.
It's not for your teeth. It's not for covering up your third eye, because they want your third eye active.
Well, that's an interesting point, actually, and that's counter to all of the dogma in the alternative media. They want it active because they can control us through it. So that's the trick. But look, that more and more it highlights that everything that we see publicly, and we did touch on this, Shane, before in the conversation too, is that the parts of the system we see publicly are not what's going on. The real stuff's going on in the background, and we just have to extend that to all the information that we receive from anywhere.
Right. And that's where I'm at in my story, is the Akashic Record is unlimited. The only thing that hinders me is physical time to be in the energy field to do it, and maintaining my life.
Well, we've got 3 days after the conference, so let's just keep recording these conversations for 3 days.
What role is HAARP playing in all of this? That's initially what we started to talk about.
HAARP is a very wide range spectrum program. It's not just for weather control. weather is our sentience in the macro form as unity consciousness that hasn't gone through the full conscious change. So our weather patterns of our Earth are the macro reflections of us going through the process of becoming in unity consciousness. So what HAARP does is changes the weather pattern, so we are in more turning up the junk stage where we can't go inside ourselves. And then there are other people that are affected by the weather differently because they remember a time in their soul life where they were connected to the earth and connected to the ground and connected to the winds and the four elements and the nature and the dragonfly spirits and all of that. And now HAARP keeps us away from reverse engineering unity consciousness in disunity.
And the chemtrails are part of the mechanism of HAARP.
And more. They're more there to blur the sky because there's a transparent layer with dots on it that make the sky look very different, the stars look very different. In our belief system, our beliefs are so strong that Gemini is this, the Big Dipper is over there. We've had how many millions of years of the precession of the equinox, which was created so that we have a belief structure that's encoded into
that astrology is part of the control mechanism.
Absolutely, I've said that many times.
Yeah, okay.
But it has to have good in it for people to believe in it, just like the Bible, it has to have good in it. See, they don't care about the good in it. I honestly don't. They just want the propaganda because it was never about the in-between time. The in-between time's the hairball. It's the end time, where people's belief systems determine what they create and how many times Earth separates.
It becomes when the population become consciously aware of the fact that they're co-creating everything. That's the point where they want to have their propaganda in position, ready to have its effect, which is to make us create the reality that they want.
Correct.
Okay, this is the ultimate trick then, to trick the entire collective into creating the reality they want, so they can keep feeding on us energetically.
At a different scale, at a much higher scale.
Yeah, because we'd be tuned to what they want, what they really want.
And more than that, we would be going from like 10 volts to 1,000,000 amps.
Because of the energetic shift that we're experiencing.
And the belief shift.
Yeah, so this is their end game.
And they wouldn't be tied to the karmic repercussions because it's our free will decision, correct?
Well, exactly. All they did was tell us some stuff to shift our beliefs, and we accepted their information as fact and manufactured the
and that's
results.
what source streams are doing here in this reality right now.
And as soon as we started having this conversation, my tinnitus kicked in humongously. So we started off this conversation talking about the technology of implants, and I don't know if we've mentioned on this recording the aspect of the control system that you were describing at that moment, which was the field that they create, which enables them to observe us and do things to us, using the space in between the atoms of the planet itself.
Correct, as the omnidirectional field that's contained that our belief systems are contained in. There's an energy field around Earth that's our belief system. And that energy field is linked to Earth's energy field, and what they're trying to do with the technology is to separate us from the Earth mind. So they follow their own belief system, so we recreate Earth instead of we create Earth and Earth creates with us. Take that symbiotic relationship away.
And they want to be directing this, they want to be the traffic cop that makes this relationship work their way.
Correct.
I mean, reclaiming personal sovereignty is absolutely the key to rejecting their propaganda, which is changing the game, which is why we keep getting back to that aspect of the conversation again and again like a cracked record. Because all of these conversations lead back to that point every time. I think that's probably going to be the theme of these conversations, that we'll start off talking about a technical aspect, a social aspect, some aspect of the propaganda and control, and we'll end up saying, well, how do we fix it? We
can't fix it.
You can only change it.
Can only change it.
Now, is there some point in the future that there will come a point where our technology, our bodysuits, etc., will not be able to break this mold? It'll be so powerful, and is that what we're...
No, I don't think it'll ever, because it'll only be by our consent. Always by our consent. If we change our minds, it'll only take an instant to fix it.
That's right.
Let's not use the word fix, to make something new. Because even though, the message that we've been trying to put out on the shows is that we really need to create something new, because the old can't be fought. It can't be made better. It can't be made to work, because it was never made to work in our favour.
We have to create your way out of it.
It's
on all levels.
Well, we're back again almost immediately because we decided there was a little bit of technical information we needed to put out there about the architecture of the implants and Andrew,
how the programs work,
and how the programs work, and we wanted to actually get that down on tape so we don't have to actually go back to it later while it's in fresh in
You're asking, you created Visual Basic, and how does that relate into programming? So when they create a program, let's look at the two most basic programs that they want to insert into you at any time. The victim program, I am a victim, I am powerless, I am a victimizer. So what is a victim? Someone that allows things into their energy field that is greater than their belief system. What is a victimizer? Someone that inserts their beliefs into a person's belief system that they know is incapable or unable to have the free will to stop it. So the program itself is a set of emotional responses that are attached to your adrenal glands to put you in fight or flight. So when your adrenal glands are really high, you'll be aggressive and you'll be a victimizer. If you are in a victim state, your endocrine glands won't properly be producing, and you won't have the awareness to stop something to come into your energy field. It's like if you're in a big crowd of people and you start all feeling their energy, it's because your endocrine glands aren't functioning right, your acetylcholine's not functioning right, and the chemical processes in your skin suit are in such a way that they're scrambled, and it makes it very easy for you to just be a victim. On the other side, a victimizer program, which is literally just manipulating your energy meridians so that you are in a high energy state, aggressive state, and fall into the archetype personality of a dominator. And there are people that are dominators but are humongously good people because they have good hearts behind them. And then there are people that are victimizers that have no heart behind them. And those people accept the programming at their heart level. And when you accept a program at your heart level because your belief system says that this world is concrete and glass and you eat cows and vegetarians are less than people, that's them in the program. If you look at the Fox News people, they're all Republican Christians, and you look at the MSNBC people, they're Democrat and pro-life, so pro-choice. Again, it's looking at the belief system that a culture has and then creating foundational software that manipulates the culture as well as the culture changes, so you can upgrade the victimizer software. And the software itself is created in a dream environment.
So it's actually manipulating at gland level.
Correct.
To actually stimulate really basic responses to shift your behavior and your response to interacting with the people around you. So you'll tend to be aggressive. They just turn on the right hormones to make you aggressive.
Correct. And you follow that habit pattern, which is implanted into you in a dream environment.
So they use the dream environment to make further suggestions to you about how you should behave.
Which is why they created the sacred geometry cities to trap you in the dream so that they can make you so you'd be very susceptible to those programs and implants.
We have no idea what a free world would actually feel like to live in.
What is free will?
No, a free world. And
what is a free world?
Well, a world where there isn't one of these domination systems in play. Does that exist?
Yeah. Not here. Not right now, not at the moment of this recording. No. But it does exist on Earth. In all of us. Because we're already there. Timeline genocide is what created this paradox disunity reality. And until we resolve our paradoxes, which is why we're in disunity, why we're in domination and control, why we must go through every aspect of separation of source at the galactic level, separation of source at the universal level, and separation of source at the planetary level, separate on the source at a human level, even in your local environment.
Oh, look, I've spoken about division many times now on the radio. It's all by division. Yeah.
And when you divide on all of those levels and all of the scales, it's only the individual I am presence that can make any change. And when the I am presence is stuck in software programming, because we give away our free will to it, you're in a state where people won't do anything. They'll just follow the materialism, consumerism program that's put in front of them. And then you have people that are light workers or grid workers or something else, and they're following their own program. And then there are programs that are created for light workers or for dark workers to make them create factions and divisions, because inside their DNA they're incarnating into these old factions that were created to bring Earth back to its original timeline, before timeline genocide. So you have a tremendous amount of things working against our regaining of unity consciousness, because we started as a unity consciousness species, and it was taken away step by step by step by step until the last fall of Atlantis, where there was no unity conscious species left.
The interesting thing about it is that we can take it back in an instant if we act in unity consciousness. All of the steps they've taken can be instantly removed when we reach that.
Just like me dumping out the water out of a cup.
Yep. And that's reality.
That's reality.
So when you talk about the activation of chemical processes that lead to our response mechanism, at what point did they realize that they could do so with food?
When you're overeating carbs, your adrenal gland will recharge faster or burn out faster. If you're, depending on your genetic makeup and the soul lineage you are, if you're eating certain types of foods will trigger spiritual responses, which will make you high energy, which will make you target in the dreamtime world to be a battery for them to go and drain more. Because that's also part of the architecture, is your energy for them. You're a battery for them. Just like in the Matrix in the beginning, where he wakes up and there's thousands of tubes. That's a very accurate, soft disclosure, but not physically. We are energy to them because we're an energy planet. We have a physical reality, and our energy is based off of our free will to be incarnated into a body. And when we begin giving away our free will, because we expect to be a symbiotic relationship with the planet, and then they have this facade that is creating the separation of two worlds. So you're not symbiotically related to your planet anymore, you're individually related to yourself. And once you're related only to yourself, you fall into the programs. And programs are wide-ranging, from Democrat program, Republican program, citizenship program, patriot programming, nationalist programming, go on and on and on and on. Criminals, thieves.
At ground level, if you want to understand, if you want to work out what aspect of the programming you're in, you look at your life and what you've become involved in. So if you're involved in a political party, it's the party programming. If you're involved in, say, the military, it's the patriot programming. And there's variations on that. Obviously, there's flavours all over the place. But it's very easy to see. If you're in an ism particularly, then you're in, one of the things that's been forced upon us to create this construct.
That's right. To create this construct out of using our free will to keep it solid.
Do you remember a TV series called Red Dwarf? Yep. Better Than Life game? Yep. Wasn't so good. Nope. And we're in one.
And we're in one right now.
Exactly. And somewhere there's a domestically obsessed robot trying to get us out, called Crichton.
There's a movie out there called Existence, Existence, and it's about a person that creates a holographic video game, and it brings a bunch of people into the story, and at the end of the story they think they come out, but they're not actually out.
Yeah, it's like Inception, multiple layers.
Inception's another great way of describing the world we live in right now.
Yeah, I just wonder if there's a way we can tell when we've actually extracted ourselves from the matrix that we're in, other than using a spinning top and seeing whether it ever stops. Now, there'll be a point where the people actually do start to take reality back, make it their own again. How will we be able to tell we've actually done that job?
You're not going to take reality back. You're going to let it go.
Oh,
let's look at our linguistics here for a second. It's taking a program.
Yep.
Okay. How can you take back something that's already you're in the creation of it? Revolution? Is revolution a program?
Absolutely.
All of it.
Yeah. Creation should be the only program that we actually think about. We're creating
a symbiotic.
See how easily I slip back into the programming.
Me too.
It's there all the time in our language. It's right in it's right in front of us.
It's so much a part of us at every moment that only the I Am Presence can shut it off. There's this saying of, if you're a vibrational match to something, it's there for you. That's programming. So there are people that have belief systems that say, if you're all heart, nothing can harm you. In this world, that's lies. If you're all love, that's your lie. You'll still starve to death.
Yeah.
Okay.
All we are is
to still be hurt by people that are in the system. You will still be attacked by other people's belief systems no matter how much of a love being you are, because you're not in creation.
If I can try and describe our existence, because what's happening over a period of time is I'm kind of absorbing new parts of the information, and it's not just coming from you. It's being reinforced by commentaries from elsewhere. My perspective is currently coming to the conclusion that as energetic entities, we are simply consciousness with a belief set that's creating a physical world that we exist in. And that the game is simply the control of the belief set, because we will always be energy and we will always be consciousness. The variable is the belief set. And part of the belief set is actually knowing that you have one, and that you're actually going through a current system, which is a set of beliefs that don't come from within.
And once you have beliefs, what happens? Your experience on the world is different.
Yes. Shift your belief set, shift your experience.
We are experiential beings. We're here for experiences. That's why we incarnate all over the galaxy in the different universes, to come here for an experience.
Let me have a go at a different description then. So if we say we're consciousness and we're not going to take back reality, we're simply going to make a decision to experience something else.
Exactly.
I think that's more accurate. And actually, it's really simple.
Yep.
Really simple. There's no politics involved. There's no financial system involved. It's one simple decision.
That's right. One simple decision. Well, let's look at the term simple decision. For many, it will not be a simple decision because their belief system is so rigid. It'll be torturous for them to go through a change.
Absolutely.
And now they'll need to be embraced by the old earth as they go through the change in vibration. And the raise of vibration, part of the vibration. And then they realize that the vibration is still a belief system.
Yeah, well,
until you're back into the symbiotic relationship with Earth, you are in still the facade, even if you're transitioning through creation out of the old reality and into the new reality. Yeah, tough one, isn't it?
Have to think about that one. Yeah.
We're always creating our own facades, even in creating our way out.
Well, to exist in physicality, we have to create a facade. There's an avatar involved and an environment. There's the skin suit and the scene. And then there's the other beings that are interacting in that particular game at that particular time. The metaphor they're using to build what we call computer games in is exactly the same. You know, there's a programmer that sits there and creates a reality. And you engage in the game by agreeing to behave as an avatar in a certain way in this scene. And there's a constructed game, and it's fun, and you can make up your own to an extent. But you can never make up your own completely because it's a programmed environment. Now the difference here is that we could do anything. There are no limitations. Absent limits is a really, really useful term.
Absent limits.
Absent limits.
Once you get that to the deepest part of your consciousness, let it sit there and stew.
Yep. Because it switches off all the programming ultimately.
No, it doesn't. Switch off the programming.
Well, that's
it just makes you aware that the programming is what limits you.
My experience because I've been pondering on the absent limits thing since Heather brought that forward, because she's the first one that I heard that used the term. And there's those pesky sprinklers firing up again.
Turn off.
I've progressively been applying it to, okay, if I'm running up against a problem, I'm learning to recognizing that it's a limitation that's been set on me, and the term absent limits comes to my mind, and it helps me to process the fact that I'm trying to get past some programming ultimately. It's simply I'm kind of using it as a tool with which to attack. See, the word I use, attack, to process, it's as good as any, process the situation in a fashion that is appropriate. I'm trying to be really careful with words here because every word is laced with so much programming. You have to use really neutral language. Isn't that interesting?
Absolutely.
So coming from the neutral is going to be one of the ways that we will successfully process the situations that we're in and realize the aspects that are being presented to us but actually aren't from us, that we can actually make a different decision about and have a different experience as a result of.
Absolutely.
And as you rightfully said, it's going to be torture for a lot of people because of the belief sets have been with them their entire lives and completely ingrained in what they believe, in what their reality is day to day.
Let me give a little example of changing of belief systems on my personal level. What's gone on for me in these last 11 days, 10 days, 9 days, 5 days, is a belief system that radio was the way to get it out. Video was the way to get it out. That soul family was the way to get it out. And that belief system for me was ultimately, I realized, is a program also. And that program didn't come from the system of domination and control. It came from the planetary minds of other worlds that I've lived on, other Akashic Record worlds that I've lived on. Some in ego, some outside of ego. But ultimately they want Earth to rejoin the symbiotic relationships of the rest of the galaxy that we all have. I've talked about the experiential wealth trade with you on many shows between solar systems and the experiential nature of travelers and consciousness explorers. They want Earth back in that system. And that's what inner function with me on my foundational belief system is, to get as much information out into the public vibration before the Dreamtime phase took over on August 1st. And since September 16th to the 20th, the fundamental rules have changed so much that planetary sentience can work with their founding members that are here stuck in this reality on a different scale now. The thing is, even planets have ego. You get an ego at every level. What does the ego do? It's a survival tool. And if it's not a survival tool on one level, it's a creational tool on another level. And at this dimension, we don't really see how a planetary ego can be beneficial for us.
Well, does not an ego, I mean, there has to be some form of ego in place to actually enable you to operate as a separate thing.
Correct.
Okay, you can't be a separate form of consciousness without some form of awareness of self.
That's why
I mean, at its simplest,
skin suit, the ego's built into it.
Yeah, there's an awareness of self that has to be present in order to function and have experiences.
And when you make your ego your amigo,
yep,
nothing stinks. You don't have a giant ego because you're in union with that all parts of your body. You know, there are detractors of my information, you know, ego this, ego that. Anybody that's just a source stream is going to be functioning with that type of detractors. Even on a personal level, you know, you run across those people that look at you and that identify you as this because their belief system only allows you to label you as this, this, or this. Ego person, this or that, creating out of this. You've been around me long enough to know that the stream of information is seamless. And it doesn't stay non-seamless. It is what it is. And that's what, since the first interview that I've done with you, you've identified with, and then the different heart resonances you've had and the personal experiences that you've had. And my belief system is now changing from doing it on radio to doing it a different way. A totally different way. A way that isn't expected by the system, isn't part of their predictive models.
Do you want to describe that here and now, or are you going to leave that for a little later in these conversations?
It's a combination of written, art, video, sound, and something wonderful. To use the words from 2001, Space Odyssey.
Something wonderful is going to happen.
Something wonderful is going to happen. Speaking at people in the different layers. The first Walking in Energy shows that I did with you and the ones subsequently after that, we spoke about how I spoke in layers and layers and layers, and those people that tried to transcribe those shows had such a difficult time transcribing it.
They did. It seemed to take them days and weeks beyond what it should do.
I had a professional transcribing company in Canada. I sent them 10 hours, and they were charging basically $1 a minute to translate, and they would do professional stuff at the Supreme Court level in Canada. And these were their top peak producers, and what would normally take them 6 hours or 8 hours to do a 2-hour show with complete accuracy was taking them 40.
Wow. So you got a wow out of me again. I didn't think it would be that much. I thought maybe double.
40.
Wow. So that's 6 times longer. Did you say 6 hours it would normally take it?
4 to 6 hours normally.
4 to 6 hours for a 2-hour show? It's taking 40.
And there were people that gave up the project because the material was too much for them to process and be able to regurgitate type. So speaking in layers is the absolute necessity now. It has to be not a show, but it has to be a presentation that has all the visual formats, the touch, the scent, the taste, and everything else. It has to complete the the perception, the levels of perception that we have. Be creative, be happy, be heartfelt, and not let the system continue to insert new programs. Identify when you're a victim or a victimizer. Identify when you're falling into different type of archetypes. The angry person, the half-glass empty person. All of those archetypes that we see in everyone else are all programs.
An archetype, architecture. It's a program. It's a program about programming.
That's right. Exactly.
Once you start to look for it, you see it everywhere in everything. In every.
In its tracks. Just being aware of it is one thing. Stopping it is another.
To be honest, I'm finding TV. I do watch TV regularly because I want to see what the propaganda is. But I've come to the conclusion that because I'm understanding it's propaganda, all of it's propaganda. It's not propagandizing me. I'm actually separate from it. I think I've actually kind of almost reached that point. There's still I still have some sports programming in me. I like watching. I actually do still like watching yacht racing, particularly with the new yachts, because they are just beautiful. They are just beasts. But as far as political commentary, financial commentary, social commentary, all the chit-chat that's going on, it's like there's a distance between me and that information now, where I'm observing it for what it is. And it's taken a while to get there, but these conversations have been pivotal in allowing me to actually get to that place. And it's really good that we're having this, because our radio audience are really important, because they have an understanding so far beyond the rest of the population. They are pivotal in taking it into the next phases.
And they are the ones that are the new leaders.
They are the new leaders, and the only way they're going to find that out is if we keep reminding them of that. Right. Because they only have to look around at their level of understanding. And this is not egoic. This is simply the way it is at the moment. They are in a position to do great good with the information. And I'm making a judgment here. This information good, other information bad. It's just information. What reality do you want to experience?
Exactly.
I'm trying to get back to that neutral again.
What choice do you want?
What choice do you want? It's like one of those infuriating movies. I used to find them infuriating, where the guru would turn up and he would only ask one question. What do you want? Came out in Babylon 5. There was a character wandering around who was saying, who do you serve? Who do you love? What do you want?
What do you want?
Now, actually, there was two characters wandering around. There was one presented as a good guy who was saying, who do you serve and who do you love? Another one wandering around saying, what do you want? Big difference in there.
Big difference.
And he was representative of the group called the Shadows, who were going about managing younger races in a rather vicious fashion, because they felt that was the way to do it. There was a difference of philosophy between those guys and the Vorlons, who were presented as angelic, who were wandering around trying to get people to actually...
That shows off soft disclosure.
All of it. And if you haven't seen it yet, have a look at it. Special
only
effects.
4 seasons, or 5 seasons.
It was 5 seasons, and it was a complete story in its own right. Very engaging.
Outstanding series.
There's so much information in it. It's one of those things
that and Inception should be watched by everyone.
In fact, you should probably prepare a list of soft disclosure movies that you recommend everyone catch to make sure that they've got all the good ones.
2001: A Space Odyssey is soft disclosure.
What about 2010? How did you feel about that?
Soft disclosure again.
Yep.
But it was in a soft disclosure at an attempting of a different belief system.
It had a different feel to it.
Right. It was trying to put us into a different belief system. Because at that point, one of the desires was to bring us back into interstellar commerce as a truck driver species.
Yeah, functionaries.
And then they can mine the best souls out of us, because the ships that they need psychics to make them work.
That was very fascinating. It was all about the psychics. Interesting, wasn't it? And the fact they talked about a big kill-off of psychics earlier in their history. Well, it sounded to me like the Inquisition carried out by the Jesuits a long time ago. So, well, we're all here again, and
You wanted to ask that.
did you want to
No, I was just going to regress 1 second. When you're talking about still watching television and keeping up with the propaganda, when you have a response mechanism, let's say frustration, are you operating at that point on your new software and understanding, or is this because we still have emotional responses too?
Yeah, I have to say it's not yet complete. It's a work in progress, because there are things that make me angry still, and they really shouldn't, because, now, I tell you what makes me angry is the physical suffering that all this stuff generates. That'll probably always make me angry.
Absolutely.
I know Hope's sitting over there with a...
Oh, yeah.
Frustration and hesitation are a program. An actual foundational program that they created so that we would stay separate of ourselves. Hesitation is doubt in many different forms. Frustration is angst, happiness, and sadness all interjumbled together so that you can't go into yourself to find an answer to the question.
Frustration is something that pops up for me every now and then, but I've recognised the thing that disturbs me is actually that these people, to them it's a reality. They're having an experience. I don't want to actually negate the experience they're having, because to them it is real and they're expressing it. But, you know, I've become aware that around Andrew, the system is actually muddying the water continuously. It's happened to everybody that's around this particular block of information. I feel Andrew as a, you know,
Lightning rod at times.
Well, yeah, that. But you are, you know. You are the Akashic in my mind. You know, you're actually starting to embody not just. That's not the word to use. You're starting to embody like a living library of information, and you know, there's also the human Andrew. You know, there's sort of two aspects going on there, and I think you're extremely aware of that, because it's the way that you work.
That's right. It's the only way I can live here.
But I think others are viewing you, trying to. I think it's probably the Saviour program kicking in with the Saviour. They're looking for someone to come and have all the answers to all their questions and resolve their lives. And
I'm doing whatever I can do to reject the Saviour program being inserted into me.
Yeah.
For me, I'm at a point where this event is very big, not for me, for the world. Not this one event, this day. This day and tomorrow and Sunday is when we as human beings get a chance to express our vibration at a point where the system is barely in the green energy. It doesn't have enough energy coming in to pay for its standard upkeep of its systems. So it's going to have to go in the negative over the next few days, and then it's going to have to draw out of us. And that's what that shooting in Washington, D.C. is. They needed energy. They needed a bill to pay.
Well, they've been doing, staging minor events like that continuously now for a month and a half. Shootings, you know, the thing in Africa, in the mall, that generated quite a lot of fear. You know, there was enough Westerners involved in that. Notice they didn't attack a marketplace, they attacked a Western mall, so the Western media would pick it up. Right. And it was a really obvious ploy. But yeah, you think they'll continue to stage as many of these minor incidents as possible?
Absolutely, because they have to pay, the system has to pay its bills.
At about 30 minutes in, my ears started ringing, and it actually happened 4 times, and it was the longest my ears have rung ever. I actually got a little freaked out about that. I've never experienced that.
You had something to say about ringing ears a couple of shows ago.
High vibration entities communicating. Your ears are tuning to that vibration so you can be more aware of their presence.
Huh. Was there a difference between tones in the left ear to the right ear?
From my left ear. This was actually left back, almost left center.
So, when you get that, it means it's activating a particular part of your brain to determine if the awareness you is fully there. And when you have the ear ringing, it's to remind you have to be there for the presence, to have communication. It'll start this chain reaction of electrical impulses that'll go all over your brain, so the left and the right brain begin to fire in a proper sequence, and then you can actually have a full multi-dimensional communication. So it's a process. Other than the other, I don't think it was an attack in any way, shape, or form, but
no, I felt fantastic.
scalar weapons will do similar things. They'll just, instead of going after the ears, they'll go right to the brain to trigger a reversing pattern. So you can't have multidimensional communication. For you, it was clear you were getting activated for high vibration communication. There's a tremendous amount of high energy spirits that are protecting. Tremendous, thousands and thousands of them.
Do you perceive them directly at all?
I experience them. So I know they're there, and I know they're there in mass, and they're not there to be seen. They're there to just hold space and to not interrupt with anybody's experience of the collectivation. They're there to hold space for safety and security of those minds that may be worried about safety and security. So that layer of architecture is removed, and during that time of that ceremony.
I just realized that my tinnitus was off during that whole period of time, and it's back on now. So there you go. Getting weird, folks.
That's right.
Each different bubble of reality is true.
A galactic historian is a person that looks at all the lines of dramatic karma.
Nudge, nudge.
It's the Holy Grail.
Improvise. Mysterious. It's counter psychic intelligence.
Why is DNA farming of this star cluster so important?
Because we do manifest our reality. We do create our reality.